The next speaker, again, Nita, she's a venture capitalist. And if you think women in tech is a rarity, that's probably a rarity of rarity. So yeah, very, very glad that you could make it. Again, she has extensive experience working at the intersection of business solutions, technology, and innovation. Again, extremely keen for us to notice that it is not one skill that gets you forward in your journey, in your career. It is an intersection of skills, and Nita is a great example of that. She currently works with India, but then she has prior experience with a lot of firms, Medtronic, Mapmygenome, Cyient, companies that you would all recognize. So she's an early stage VC, she's a strategist, she's an innovator, she's a scientist, she's a doctor, and an ecosystem enabler. Without further ado, Nita, take it away, please.
Not making slides, after seeing beautiful slides of Vani, and then, amazing talk by Dr. Jaya as well. So thank you for having me over, and I'm so glad to see a lot of men here as well. Usually if they say women in tech or like women talk, a lot of men think that we're not supposed to be here. But good to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you. I thought, let me also say that, when Tanya called me, she said, what are you going to title it? I said, really, I thought this was like supposed to be a free-flowing conversation, and that's what I had prepared for. But then I'll give a little background about myself, how I got to what I got. And none of this was planned. I think all was, more serendipitous and more passion-driven. Definitely didn't plan to be a VC. I think it's just curiosity which got me to where I am right now. And I think every day is a curious day, and that keeps me on my toes. Always ready to learn. Definitely not, I don't sleep a lot, which is not a good thing. I need to sleep a lot more. So I'll just maybe start off with my life journey, what I started off with. My father was a scientist, so I thought first let me become a doctor, but then I wasn't really cut out to be a doctor. So I became a scientist, and just I guess different parts of that took me to US, worked there. Then some, there was a different life change. Said that okay, my husband was moving back to India. I said, well, I don't want to move back to India. This was like almost a decade and a half back. But then I think I can't be happier than the place where I am at, and being an ecosystem enabler, and very, very happy to be where I am right now. And none of this would have happened if I wouldn't have made that shift from being a scientist to what I am right now. So we came back to India. I had very young babies at that point. So again, going back to when you said that, you work through your, having your child, and I think a lot of us, I think some of the girls are very young here, but then others can identify about having a child and how you're going to juggle with your career. Didn't take a break. I decided that I can't really be a stay-at-home mom ever. So I think a month back, and I don't suggest any of the other ladies to do that either. But then, you do what you have to do. So always work through. But when we came back, I think that's when I took a little bit of break to really understand, what I really want to do. And I think that was more of a pause and important for me to really understand that whether I want to continue being a scientist. But then I thought this is a great place where, you come back to India and you can follow your passion. And I really wanted to work on the interface of technology and really bringing the science to the market. So I joined Indian School of Business, really to first understand what does it take to get the innovation to the marketplace. So worked with some amazing pharma companies both in India and in the West. So sort of learn what happens in the West and sort of adopt it, but then realize very quickly it doesn't happen like that in India. India is very local market. You have to change, you have to adopt. And I think that led me to sort of become the founder of an incubator at ISB, which helps more technology-driven business solutions to the marketplace. And that was just a stepping stone. And I think what I'm trying to say is I just went as it went, right? I think it was more about passion-driven rather than, hey, let me connect. I want to be this. And so that was my starting journey of really, being close to where the solutions are being developed. So saw very early stages of startup ecosystem in the country. It was 2014. Subsequently, I think things were very slow. I said, I want to really work with startups. So I joined Mapmygenome, which was again in the genomic space. but then moved more on the business side, deeper and deeper into that. So after some time, then I started to do some of my own startup work, more in the EHR space, electronic health record space. I think that again came from like having a dissonance of, being frustrated to carry this file of medical records to your doctor, which still happen, and it's very frustrating. So I would go to a doctor and realize that, you still have to carry your medical records. It's really tough, to explain your entire history of medical, whatever your medical issue is. But then quickly realize it's too early again, the ecosystem is too early. There's no digital adoption. There were no computers in the hospitals. I think the only other hospital which had digital one was the Continental Hospital. And then continue to, what I realized even premier institute or hospitals like Apollo did it mostly for billing purposes. Your digitalization was for billing purposes. I don't think they do much of digital health records even now. So I think the reason I'm saying all this is that while when you said, sometimes the solution doesn't have to be very complicated, it can be very simple, solving a solution, right? You're trying to do one step at a time. So again, I realized that this was too early for the ecosystem, and then I joined Medtronic, worked for some products. Then I joined, Cyient as well. Adarsh is here, ex-colleague from Cyient. So did some very fantastic work there, and at the same time, again, I started doing my executive MBA at ISB because I realized that while I was working on the business side of things, I think having an MBA in a country like India is equally important. So while, I think the reason I'm repeating all this is that juggling multiple things. I think as a woman, we juggle multiple things, and I think we are very good at connecting the dots. And the reason I'm saying, I actually wanted to title my talk as Connecting the Dots. And I think that's something being very, very, I think part of my journey is that, I think as a scientist, being very curious is like a top thing about me. Deeply passionate about what I do, and being able to connect dots, not just in what I work. Again, I'll talk to a whole bunch of people here, but to be able to see, okay, it's AI, ML, drug discovery, it's patient record, I think to be able to see if there is a pattern, right? Like, it may not come up, it's more like a eureka moment, more of like a, okay, hey, I think we can do this. And that's what, even in Cyient, my theme was more about, being able to connect the dots and work across multiple business units as well to be able to now come up with a solution. So I was head of the strategy at Cyient for the medical business unit. I was leading their new product development, as well as some of the corporate venture investments. So I think some of that, again, was not a core part of my job description at that point. I joined as head of strategy, but I think a lot of things just fell in place because I was ready to take a lot more on my plate than what was actually initially given. Most firms will not do that. You join a function, but I think when they see a person, male, female, take a lot on the plate, I think, they also realize that, you are more of like a go-getter, want to get a lot of things together. So I think that job, was a fantastic learning curve for me. And I think what happened subsequently was that I think the AI ML engine at LinkedIn kept pushing this job posting for this VC firm. I think they realized that, I fit that job description very well. And I knew, the people at this VC firm from earlier from my startup days, and I just happened to write to them. It was also COVID time at that point. So I wrote to them, and they said, why don't you apply? So I applied, and, I think 10 rounds of my interview, and, they said, okay, you are like the right fit, and I joined them. So I really had to think that, at this late stage of my life, do I really want to do that, right? Like, do I really? And I said, okay, this is a chance that you're given only once. It's like a space shuttle. Do you want to get in, or do you not want to get in? So, I think I took the plunge, and that's how I got onto the VC journey. And of course, I see like cutting edge work happening, not just in India, all across. And I'll, probably go through and each of the things that you were mentioning earlier, have seen at least some of that, or have worked in some of that spaces. And I so quickly go through, and feel free to interrupt me. Happy to. I was hoping this is more going to be more of an like engaging, two-way talk. But I think what I really, the NLP or like the whole AI space, what caught me was one of Google's talk when Sundar Pichai was talking on the Lambda, right? Like, being able to pass through a lot of text and being able to make out sense from that. So when I see a lot of patient records and a lot of startups come up with that, more of, and I'm talking from a US context, this will not happen in India until we have digitization of our medical records, where, you actually see a lot of medical records and being able to identify parameters, like having a, history of the patient. So some of the work that I have seen and really impressive work, which would be the future of medical care, is that, let's say today you have fever, and then you have cough, and then, but how do you delineate from having, COVID versus like a regular cough and what sort of cough? And let's say 6 months later, you come in again and see the doctor. So how do you actually go back and look at the previous medical history and be able to make sense? So this time, let's say the person comes with newer symptoms, comes up with stomach pain and fever. So, sometimes the doctor may miss it, and doctor may not be able to backtrack and see that, okay, what does the fever and the stomach pain now have to do with, the cough and fever previously? Do I need to do XYZ tests? So the AI would actually go back and look at, give, based on the medical history and the medical databases that they have, that you need to go and do, XYZ tests, and then come up with, more tests to be able to come up with a medical, analysis. I think that is where the future of medical care is happening in US. And there are several startups which are in this space. I think definitely a space to look out for, at least as a, something which is exciting. I think that whole conversational AI as well, again, speech because in US, you also have the doctors not, wanting to write a prescription, or like having all the medical records, if you can just speak it out and whether it can, translate it back to text and then, stored as a medical history, right? In India, until there's a law for it, I think we were not going to do that way, because I think it was, I think, an act, Obama Act, which forced them to really put the medical records as more textual basis, which all the doctors stated, by the way, basically meant for clinical trial observations. You look into continuous monitoring of these cardiac parameters, which got subsequently acquired by an Israeli firm. That was a very interesting one. In the pathology space, we had done from the previous firm that I worked at a VC firm, which was in the AI-based pathology space. I think a lot of them, I think you make these slides, again, a radiologist or pathologist has to see it physically. How many slides do you do per day? Like maybe 50 or 100, and you can mention how many of that. But so this was an AI-based microscopy where you would actually do scan the entire whole slide and then see the cancer markers or cancer cells and be able to flag it, which a really person who's like overly taxed for observing too many slides, you can easily miss out some of the cells which are malignant. So that was again in the slide space, but you have a similar one where it's X-ray or ultrasound-based one where you can do for cervical cancer screening as well. A very interesting recent one which I saw was in the chemistry space. Now you have these like thousands and thousands of chemical compounds, actually millions. Now how do you detect, what are the interactions from each of these and come up with a novel compound? Again, Google DeepMind and some of these are like really cutting edge ones which have, deciphered protein structures. But then being able to come up with novel chemicals, which are, let's say, in the green chemistry space, in the sustainability space. I think this is the only company of its kind in the world where they have, these are Harvard scientists who have come up with the interesting AI way of seeing the cement, be a green form of, let's say, the cement, which is, less emitting, less greenhouse, emitting carbon emission. So, I think the ability to be able to take, computer science or let's say chemistry into like really novel ways is, and then I think curiosity is like really most important. Being well read, while I love reading news, but then, can I connect The Economist, what's the article which is in Economist with something else which is happening in some other part of the world? Of course, I'm not, all these technologies, when I see the solution, I think while all these technologies are exciting, I think as a VC I have to ensure that it is monetizable, right? Can we make money out of it? At the end of it, it's not like cutting edge work which is going to really get funded. Sometimes it is also the team, whether they can really have the right set of people to make money. I think just like your business unit as well, right? Like you have to be able to sell the solution to client and then be able to monetize it. So, sometimes your solutions doesn't have to be like rocket science. It can be very simple solution. And I think that's what I think puts sort of grounds you as well, that, while as a scientist, I love to see breakthrough technology, but B, as a VC or a business person, can we make money out of it? So I think, again, connecting back the dots and being grounded, I think it keeps me grounded as well as at home as well. So it's important for all this stuff. And I think, yeah, so I think that's about it. I do have a lot more examples, but, I'll just stop and would love to talk to all of you. And thank you for having me over.
Thank you. And again, resonates with everything that you said. In fact, How to Avoid Climate Disaster, book by Bill Gates, talks about green emissions reduction using some sort of a digital twin. So how can I create a component, how can I combine multiple molecules, generate something that will probably avoid this sort of stuff. So the answer can be a bamboo house, the answer can be a cement that is less, emitting less poisonous stuff. So thanks so much, Nita.